And we have the technology now. The fact that we are now moving forward in tokenization, every bond and stock, is crazy. Yeah. We should be moving towards that frontier.
Today, we will talk about XLM and explain how it not only has a lot of ties into BlackRock's tokenized exchange starting up in Texas, but I will also present some information that is hard to find that explains how BlackRock has been behind Stellar from the very start. We will also talk about XRP and Stronghold as well, because they are all so incredibly interconnected because of their ties into the individuals from the PayPal mafia. On the topic of the BlackRock tokenized stock exchange planning to open up in Texas, a question is posed: when does the SDF relocate their headquarters to Texas? And while they are headquartered in San Francisco, California still, they recently opened a new office in New York. BlackRock is planning to create a fully tokenized digital stock market in Texas because their goal is total tokenization of assets, including crypto. And that is primarily because of the favorable regulatory environment in Texas compared to New York. The Texas Stock Exchange has successfully secured funding at $120 million in between BlackRock and Citadel. It is expected to be the most capitalized and liquid exchange in the country. Ripple and XRP also have a conspicuous tie into BlackRock as well, because Robert Metchnick, who is BlackRock's head of digital assets, used to work at Ripple. However, despite that, the Stellar Network and Consensus Protocol are technologically much more capable compared to the XRPL at this point. And one of the major reasons for that is because Stellar has its own smart contracts. Not to mention the fact that BlackRock has been involved with Stellar from the very start. In 2015, Stellar presented with BlackRock and Fast Forward, which I will be talking about here in a little bit. Crypto will be the next version of the stock market, but it's also the next version of the internet.
Well, and so increasingly people are going to want broad market exposure to crypto. It's going to be the next version of the stock market, but it's also the next version of the internet. And so that's why it's so important for us to have launched this canonical market index, Coin 50, for people who want exposure to the broad market of crypto, not just one asset.
XLM futures contracts have recently been put on Coinbase. And on top of that, when XLM pumped so hard after the US election, it was partly because a lot has been happening in the background. There was a 125% increase in open interest and a 284% in trading volume. The incoming chairman of the SEC comes from Securitize, which already has SEC approval. The approval enables Securitize to facilitate the securitization of assets, including digital representations on the Stellar network. PayPal is heavily connected into XLM, XRP, and even SHX. PY is coming to Ondo Finance, who has a lot of involvement with BlackRock. And here is the CEO of BlackRock talking about tokenization of stocks and bonds.
Age of AI.
But at the same time, we're going to digitize currencies very rapidly. And we've seen that in India, and the great success of leveling in India because of that. And you're seeing the great success in Brazil. So there are two countries that are more advanced in these technology in blockchain than Europe and the United States right now. And that's India and Brazil. They had a need because of inflation, because of corruption. They needed to digitize their currency. And I do believe this is going to accelerate. And that's going to be the next frontier, using AI, using this. But crypto is going to play a big role. digitization of currency, digitization of everything we're doing.
Tokenization.
I'm a big believer, and this is one thing that will change Bloomberg even. I believe we're going to be in the cutting edge of tokenizing bonds and stocks.
It's coming.
And we have the technology now. The fact that we are now moving forward in tokenization, every bond and stock, is crazy. Yeah. We should be moving towards that frontier. Obviously, there's winners and losers and all that, but we need to be prepared for the tokenization. And it would democratize more finance if we tokenized bonds and
Absolutely.
stocks.
By the way,
my
Dr.
boss is
Akmal,
already.
BlackRock has begun discussions with exchanges to integrate its BIDL token as collateral in futures contracts. And on top of that, there is a patent out there for a futures trading system that can run on Stellar and Ripple. And you can see the title page of that here. Here is the actual patent itself. And if you search for Stellar, it is shown here, and it is also called out with Ripple as well. Zeneca has just recently been chosen for a Stellar Kickstart Award, and that is because that they are working on the future of tokenized US stocks and ETFs. Stronghold has some connections of its own here. One of their board members comes straight from BlackRock itself. And they have also talked probably a couple of times now about tokenization of stocks and bonds. And here is an example from as far back as 2018.
Next generation financial institution that is native to the blockchain. So what that means is that we kind of act like a normal financial institution, like a bank, and we allow people to deposit and withdraw funds from us, whether it be fiat currencies or other stores of value like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and soon probably stocks and bonds, and so forth.
The actual Stellar Consensus Protocol is also extremely important here, and it does have a lot of similarities to the Ripple Consensus Protocol, except it is even more decentralized. The key point here is that proof of work will just not be adopted institutionally. Proof of stake has its own issues as well. The quote-unquote proof of agreement protocol is inherently pretty institutionally attractive because it does not require any third-party payouts, and even more importantly, it does not introduce unknown third parties into the consensus itself. In the thread here, it specifically talks about how that is extremely important for the tokenization of real world assets. So at this point, I want to talk about the history in between BlackRock and Stellar. And I came across a link to an article probably about 3 months ago now. And since then, it has been taken offline. However, I was able to find it in the archives. And it is a little bit suspicious in my own humble opinion. The really interesting point here is that it calls out a partnership in between BlackRock and Stellar to utilize Stellar's technology to enhance the Aladdin investment management platform and to explore potential use cases for the tokenization of traditional assets. And the suspicious thing here is that it did get pulled down, and you can't really find anything else out there on this. So I wouldn't really count on it. However, with the extremely interconnected history, I would not be surprised to eventually find out that something like this has actually happened. In 2023, Stellar put out an article on their involvement in the CFTC Global Market Advisory Committee. And in that committee, JPM, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock were also involved. which can also be called out here. And it further outlines how Stellar will specifically provide guidance on cross-border remittances and the position of stablecoins in the digital asset space. And Stellar was the only L1 protocol chosen to be included in the committee. Here it begins to get a little bit more interesting. And that is because in this 2022 article, it explicitly calls out that Stellar received initial funding from Stripe and donations from BlackRock, Google, and Fast Forward, which I began to introduce here. In a 2018 article, it calls out how Jed McCaleb and Joyce Kim started Stellar. Here is a 2015 post from Joyce Kim talking about Fast Forward and BlackRock. Here is a clip from that presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joyce Kim from Stellar.org, and we're building a financial system for the world's poor.
And the content is not extremely important here, but it does call out Google and BlackRock here. Stellar was officially launched in 2014, which I think it was probably planned and set in motion a long time before that. And I say that because Stronghold was actually technically created on paper in 2013. And if you are interested in that, if you search on my channel for Action Factory, you can find a couple of videos I've done on that. As far as Google goes, they are hard to find on Stellar's website, and BlackRock is hard to find as well. In fact, it is impossible to find anything on BlackRock at all. Stellar has a developer kit for Google's programming language, which I found interesting.